Hello friends, now our topic is about human reproduction. Now we are going to see about all about the human reproduction. So first, reproductive events. So human sexual reproduction is viviparous, means we will give the live babies. Unisexual means having different sexes. So if it is bisexual, we call it as same sex. Is having, so both female and male will be having in the same organism, we call it as bisexual. If we have the different sexes, we call it as unisexual. Each sex has a pair of gonads, reproductive ducts, and accessory structures. Coming to the first, sex organs. Sex organs are testis, which is paired, two in number for male, ovaries, which is also two in number for females. So these two are for gamete formation. Sperms inside the testis, ovum means nothing but egg inside ovary. So these two are for the gamete formation as well as for the hormone production. So that's why they call it as gonads. And first one, next, puberty. So what is puberty? Means attaining the reproductive age, which we call it as both physical and growth will be happen reproductively, we call it as puberty. First is gametogenesis. Genesis means production. So formation of gametes, which is nothing but sperm and ova, we call it as gametogenesis. Next, insemination. Transfer of sperms into the female genital tract, we call it as insemination. Means we are putting the semen inside. So that's why we call it as insemination. Fertilization. We all know fusion of male and female gametes leading to the formation of zygote. We call it as fertilization. Next, implantation. Development of the blastocyst and is attached to the uterine wall. We all know that initially the fertilization will be happening in the fallopian tube, hence the formation of zygote. Later, the zygote will be transferred to the uterus for implantation. Next, gestation. Embryonic development from conception to birth, we call it as gestation. So the nothing but the period of whole pregnancy, we call it as gestation period. In the normal, we have 38 to 40 weeks, that is the normal gestation period. If the baby is born before the 38 weeks, we call it as preterm baby. If the baby is born after 40 weeks, we call it as post-term baby. Next, parturition. Delivery of the baby, we call it as parturition. Childbirth. First, the male reproductive system. So in this picture, it is been quite confused if we look at the picture. First, initially, we have been in the center, we have the urinary bladder, and this will be the pubic bone. So in the male reproductive system, the male reproductive organs will be situated outside the abdomen to keep up the temperature. Always it, for example, our body temperature is 37 degrees Celsius. To prepare the sperms or for the gametogenesis, it need 35 degrees Celsius. Means minus should be somewhat cooler. Now, so this is the pubic bone, and we have the, so these are the testes. So this whole thing which is being covered, this testis, we call it as scrotum. So we have the pair of testis present inside the scrotum, that too outside the abdomen, right? And this is the epididymis, and this is the vas difference. And now from the testis, epididymis, vas difference, so which will be wrapped around above the pubic bone and around the bladder, and finally it is being connected. Finally, its motto is to connect with the urethra. So now this is the prostate gland. This is present only in the males, and this is the seminal vesicle. So these two secretions only will give the main part of the semen. Now this finally it will be connected to the urethra. So this is the whole connection, and we'll see the certain parts here itself. So this is the pubic bone, and this whole part is the penis, and we have the certain parts of the penis. Inside the penis only we have the urethra. So the common passage for from the urinary bladder and from the testis. So we have the commonly connected here, and finally it will be joined into a common urethra. And this whole part, center part of the penis, we call it as shaft, and this exposed part we call it as glans penis, and above we have a skin which we call it as foreskin, and this is the urethral opening. So we already seen the scrotum, testis or testicles, epididymis, vas difference, we also call it as sperm duct because through which the sperms will be coming out, and this is the anus, prostate gland and rectum, and seminal vesicle. All these are the parts of the male reproductive system. And next, the male reproductive system, which is being located in pelvic region. The male reproductive system includes a pair of testes, accessory ducts, accessory glands, external genitalia. A pair of testes, which we have seen already. Accessory ducts are nothing but epididymis, vas deferens. Accessory glands are prostate, seminal vesicle, external genitalia, which is nothing but penis. So we already have seen in that picture. Next, so we have a pair of testes located inside the scrotum. So we have the pair of testes. So these are the testes located inside the scrotum. Accessory glands are rete testis, vas efferentia, vas differentia. So sorry, vas efferentia, epididymis, and vas deferens. So these are the accessory ducts. Next, external genitalia is nothing but penis. So testis, which is we are going to see very clearly and detailedly about testis. So testis, epididymis, and ductus deferens. So testis are the paired male gonads, sperm and hormones. So it will produce the sperms as well as the hormones. So this is whole about the testis. This is alone we call it as testis. This is epididymis and this is vas deferens. Oval in shape and length is up to 4 to 5 centimeters, a width of 2 to 3 centimeters, situated outside the abdominal cavity within a pouch, which we call it as scrotum. Scrotum. Low temperature of the testis 2 to 2.5 degrees Celsius. Lower than the normal internal body temperature should be maintained. That's why the testis is being located outside the abdomen. So with for spermatogenesis, testis is covered by dense covering, which we call it as capsule tunica albuginea, inside as septate. So this outside, this covering we call it as capsule tunica albuginea. Capsule means covering, tunica means layer, so albuginea. So inside you can see like a septa, means partitions. So in each testis 250 compartments are there. So like this we have 250 compartments, which we call it as testicular lobules. So these are the testicular lobules. And next, each lobule will have 1 to 3 convoluted or coiled seminiferous tubule. For example, this is the compartment. In this compartment, we have 1 to 3 convoluted, means looped, convoluted seminiferous tubule. And next, first we'll see about the seminiferous tubule. So we have a convoluted seminiferous tubule in the compartment. This is nothing but a cross section of one tube. So seminiferous tubule for sperm production. Lined on it inside by two types of cells. One is male germ cells, which we call it as spermatogonia. So these are the spermatogonias. And we have, so which will divide by the meiotic division for sperm production. Next, the second cell is serotoli cells, which we call it as supporting cells. So these are the cells of serotoli. So these are the supporting cells. So we have the spermatogonia and serotoli cells. We have the two cells. Provide the nutrition to the germ cells. Regions outside the seminiferous tubule we call it as interstitial spaces. So contains the small blood vessels and interstitial cells, which we also call it as Leydig cells. Here we will have the interstitial spaces, contain small blood vessels and interstitial cells. So Leydig cells synthesis and secrete the male hormone called androgen, which otherwise we call it as testosterone. So other immunologically competent cells are also present inside this. So we have to remind very importantly about three cells. One is male germ cells, spermatogonia, serotoli cells, which is nothing but supporting, S for S, you remind like that, serotoli cells, supporting cells, and Leydig cells for the synthesis of testosterone, which is nothing but an androgen. And next, accessory ducts. Rete testis, vas efferentia, epididymis, vas deferens are the accessory ducts. So in this picture we can able to see, so immediately from the seminiferous tubule, we will have a ducts, which we call it as rete testis. From after the rete testis, we will have the efferent ductules. So these are the efferent ductules. And this part we call it as head of epididymis. And next, this is the body of epididymis. So the whole epididymis is divided into three parts: head of epididymis, body of epididymis, and tail of epididymis. And next from the tail we will be developing with vas deferens. So this is the aberrant ductule which is vestigial in nature. So this is being not connected to the epididymis like this. So we have to remind importantly about rete testis, efferent ductules, head of epididymis, body of epididymis, tail of epididymis, which will be continuing as vas deferens. So in this flowchart, it has been clear that seminiferous tubule to vas efferentia through rete testis. So next, from the epididymis, posterior surface, it is located on the posterior, means back side of the testis, we have the epididymis. And from there, it develops the vas deferens, ascends to abdomen and loop over the urinary bladder to connect to the urethra. So next, vas deferens receives a duct which we call it as seminiferous vesicle. We have already seen in the previous slide. So about seminal vesicle, which will produce a major part of the semen, opens into the urethra as ejaculatory duct. Means the union of vas deferens and seminal vesicle together we call it as ejaculatory duct. Functions as store and transport the sperms from testis to urethra. Urethra originate from the urinary bladder and extends through the penis to external opening, which we call it as urethral meatus. Meatus means opening. So again I will explain you clearly that. So we have the vas deferens. So after vas deferens we have the seminal vesicle. Now the vas deferens and seminal vesicle unite to form ejaculatory duct. Now the ejaculatory duct will connect with urethra. The urethra will pass into the penis and finally will open with urethral meatus. Next, external genitalia, which is penis. External copulatory organ or external genitalia, made of special tissue, erection to facilitate the insemination. Enlarge the distal end, which we call it as glans penis, covered by a loose skin which we call foreskin. Next, accessory glands are seminal vesicles, which are paired. A prostate gland, only single prostate gland we have, and bulbourethral glands, which is in turn again paired. Seminal plasma, secretion of all the accessory glands, which is rich in fructose, calcium, and certain enzymes. We have to remind what is the sugar component here, that is very important, that is fructose. So helps in lubrication during the intercourse. Next, female reproductive system. The female reproductive system is located in pelvic region only, but the male reproductive system is being located outside the pelvic region to maintain the temperature. But the female reproductive system is inside the pelvic region. So what are the organs which will include? So you, for easy purpose, you compare with the male reproductive system, then it will be quite easy. A pair of ovaries, a pair of oviducts, uterus, cervix, vagina, external genitalia. Oviducts, uterus and vagina we also call it as accessory ducts. Except the pair of ovaries, remaining three we call it as accessory ducts. So a pair of mammary glands, nourishment of offsprings. All parts are integrated structurally and functionally to support the process of ovulation, fertilization, pregnancy, birth as well as for the child care. So in this picture it is being clear that what it is a sectional view of the pelvis about the female reproductive system. So first, already we have seen this is the urinary bladder. So if this would be the picture, immediately next to the pubis we will have the urinary bladder. So this is pubic symphysis, urinary bladder, and we have the urethra. And next to that we will have the uterus. So we have the uterus, vagina, and finally it will be dislodged into vaginal orifice. So here only we have the clitoris. So this is the clitoris. So female ejectile part. So clitoris, labia minorum and labia majora. Labia means lip-like structures. So the smaller lip-like structures we call it as labia minora. The larger lip-like structure we call it as labia majora. And this is the uterus. So uterus, vagina and vaginal orifice means opening. Orifice meatus means opening. And behind we have the rectum. So rectum finally will open into the anus. So these are the three structures we have to know about the female reproductive system very importantly. So this is the sectional view, means side view. Now the front view of the female reproductive system. It is very easy also. So if you are very thorough with the male reproductive system, the female reproductive system will be same as that. Ovary. So we have a pair of ovaries. and to the ovaries a finger-like connections are being there. This we call it as fimbriae, and from the fimbriae it is being connected as infundibulum. This structure we call it as infundibulum. And next we have the ampulla, like the parts of the epididymis, head of the epididymis, body and tail. For the fallopian tube also we have the three parts: infundibulum, ampulla and isthmus. All the three will be called, we call it as fallopian tube. It is connected to uterus. This whole part we call it as uterus, and this elevated part of the uterus we call it as uterine fundus, and this is the uterine cavity. So based on this we have the layers of the uterus also. So very inside layer we call it as endometrium. So for this endometrium layers only will be prepared for the pregnancy, and the middle muscular layer we call it as myometrium, and the very outer layer we call it as perimetrium. And lower to the uterus we have the cervix. This is the neck part. Cervical cancer will be not for the neck, it is the neck of this uterus. So next, this is the cervical canal, and we have the vagina, and below that we have the vaginal orifice, means vaginal opening. This is the front view of the female reproductive system. And female gonads and ovaries. Ovaries are the primary female sex organs that produce the female gametes, nothing but ovum. It also produces several female steroid hormones called estrogens and progesterone. So the ovaries are located in the lower abdomen. Each ovary is about 2 to 4 centimeters in length. These are connected to the pelvic wall and uterus by ligaments. So it can't stand in the air, but it has to be connected with certain ligaments. Each ovary is being covered by a thin epithelium, which encloses called ovarian stroma. Stroma means body of the ovary. So ovarian stroma has two zones, a peripheral cortex and inner medulla. Always the outer part we call it as cortex and inner part we call it as medulla. At the peripheral cortex, the follicles are present, and inside the medulla, the blood vessels and the ovarian ligaments are present. So in this picture it is being clear that this is the cortex, the very outer cortex, and inside we have the medulla. So in the cortex only the follicles will be there. In the middle we have the blood vessels. And initially, so in order to observe what is this means, so primordial follicles. So primordial follicles will develop into primary follicles. Inside the primary follicles only oocyte will be there. So first the primary follicle after the proliferation will be developed into secondary follicle. Now the secondary follicle is being developed into tertiary follicle. Now the tertiary follicle finally will develop into Graafian follicle. So the Graafian follicle will be ruptured and release the ovum out. So ovulated ovum. So through ovulation process, the ovum is being released from Graafian follicle. Now the remnant of the Graafian follicle we call it as Corpus Luteum, which is the yellowish body, and now which produces the progesterone. Now the Corpus Luteum, after if the pregnancy is happened, the Corpus Luteum will produces the progesterone for 3 months, and later it will disintegrate as Corpus albicans. If the pregnancy is not happened, within a short period of time only the Corpus Luteum will disintegrate into Corpus albicans. So of ovaries, transverse section of ovaries, developing follicles in the different stages. Primary follicle will develop into Graafian follicle with mature ovum. One matures over 14th day of menstrual cycle and ruptures to release the oocyte, which we call the process we call it as ovulation. After release, the follicle filled with blood clot and then the yellow cells, which we call it as corpus luteum, which will produce as the progesterone. Oviducts, fallopian tube, otherwise we call it as fallopian tubes, uterus, vagina, and the accessory ducts. All the three are. So we already have discussed about this picture. This is the sectional view of female reproductive system. Accessory ducts are oviducts, uterus, vagina. Coming to the oviducts and the fallopian tube, 10 to 12 centimeters length from the periphery to each ovary to the uterus. So which is around 10 to 12 centimeters length from the ovary towards the uterus. A part closer to the ovary funnel shaped, which we call it as infundibulum. So this finger shaped we call it as fimbriae, and this is infundibulum, ampulla, isthmus. So edge finger-like projections we call it as fimbriae, calyx of the ovum after ovulation. The wider part of the oviduct we call it as ampulla, and the narrower part of the oviduct narrow lumen which joins the uterus, we call it as isthmus. So these are the three parts of the oviducts and fallopian tube. Next, uterus, womb, and vagina. So single uterus present in the lower abdominal region, which we call it as womb. Hollow inverted pear shaped attached to the pelvic wall by the ligaments. Inside the uterus, fertilized ovum grows and develops into an embryo. Opens into vagina through a narrow cervix, which we call it as cervical canal. Cervical canal along with vagina, we call it as birth canal. The wall of the uterus has three layers of tissues. Perimetrium, which is nothing but external thin membranous. Myometrium, middle thick layer of smooth muscles, strong contraction during delivery. Endometrium, inner glandular layer, lines the uterine cavity. Cyclical changes during the menstrual cycle will happen for the endometrium. Means these endometrial layers only will prepare for the pregnancy. Next, external genitalia. So, like penis, for the females also will have the external genitalia. We call it as mons pubis, labia majora, labia minora, hymen, clitoris. These are the parts of external genitalia. If it is for the male, it is penis. Mons pubis, a pad of fatty tissue covered with hair, which we call it as mons pubis. Labia majora, fleshy fold of the tissue surrounding the vaginal opening. Labia minora, paired folds of tissue under the labia majora. I already told you labia means lips, majora means bigger lips, and labia minora means smaller lip-like structures. Clitoris, a tiny finger structures lies in the upper junction of the labia majora. We call it as clitoris. It is the female ejaculatory one, hymen. Just inside the opening of the vagina, often turned during the first coitus or intercourse. So that is the hymen. The presence or absence of the hymen is not a reliable indicator of virginity. And mammary glands, paired glandular tissue with a variable amounts of fats. So the glandular tissue is being divided into 15 to 20 mammary lobes. We will have the 15 to 20 mammary lobes. So these are the mammary lobes. So the cluster of the cells of the alveoli. So in this mammary lobes, we will have the cluster of alveoli, so which we call it as mammary alveoli. So alveoli will secrete the milk and store it in the lumen of the alveoli. So alveoli opens to mammary tubules. So the tubule will be joining into alveoli. So these alveoli will open into the mammary tubules. Mammary tubules will open into the mammary duct. Mammary duct will opens into the ampulla. From the ampulla it open into the lactiferous duct. From the lactiferous duct to nipple. So alveoli opens into the mammary tubules. Tubules of each lobe open into the mammary duct. Many ducts join to form mammary ampulla, which is connected to the lactiferous duct, and finally which is being sucked out through the nipple. And again we will discuss about the duct. So mammary tubules will open into, so the milk is stored inside the mammary alveolus. From the mammary alveolus through ductules. From the ductules it will open into the mammary duct. From the duct it will open into ampulla. From the ampulla it will open into lactiferous duct, and from it will open out through nipple. Next, gametogenesis. The process of formation of haploid gametes from the diploid germ cells in the gonads, we call it as gametogenesis, which takes place primary sex organ through testis and ovary and produces the sperm and ovum. So male spermatogenesis, spermatogonia, begins at puberty. The female oogenesis or oogonia, we call it as, starts at embryonic stage. So I hope it is very clear about the male and female reproductive system. We'll discuss about the other contents in the next slides. So thank you very much. Please do like, share, comment and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.